I'm just seeing which door is going to be 6, 7.
Oh,
Oh God, it's going to be one of those broadcasts, isn't it? Yep, for the third straight year, ESPN has decided to dip their toes into the water and throw their hat into the ring for alternate broadcasts aimed at kids. Seeing the success of the Nickelodeon broadcasts, ESPN has done an alternate telecast since 2023, trying to grow the sport and get kids into the game. The premise behind the altcast is simple. Use some sort of intellectual property that you own, which, seeing as it's Disney, basically narrows it down to anything in the universe. Heck, this channel might be owned by Disney at this point. I don't know. And with that intellectual property, you're going to grow the audience by exposing a younger generation to the sport with something that they can relate to. Maybe football in its current form is too hard and too violent for 7-year-olds to understand and enjoy, and the way the announcers talk goes over the heads of the kids. But if you change the players to characters that they know, put it in a familiar setting to them, and make it creative, now you can introduce them to the game and grow the audience. We saw ESPN try this in 2023 with Toy Story, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. We saw ESPN try this the following year in 2024 with The Simpsons, which you can also learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And now, we see ESPN try this by taking us to the world of Monstropolis, where the NFL has decided to have the Los Angeles Chargers and Philadelphia Eagles play a game there, because at this point, international expansion knows no bounds. But almost right off the bat, I was skeptical of this idea, not just because I had, shall we say, less than glowing reviews of previous altcasts. My question was simple. Why Monsters, Inc.? Seriously, why on earth would you pick this property for an altcast? With Toy Story, there's so much you can do. You have an entire theme park land. You have tons of merchandise that gets sold. You can make references to literally any toy and board game out there. You've got 4 movies, a spin-off series, a Disney Plus series, a spin-off movie that wasn't controversial in the slightest bit, and so on and so forth. With The Simpsons, you've got a movie and over 800 episodes of references available at your disposal. So there's a lot to choose from. But Monsters, Inc.? There's no ride for Monsters, Inc. anywhere in an American park. The Disney World roller coaster isn't being built for another few years, replacing Muppet's Courtyard. And the one Monsters, Inc. ride that does exist in California is going to close in a month to open up another Pandora for Avatar. And no, I don't count the Laugh Floor as a ride. On top of that, you've got just 2 movies, with the latter being mentioned just twice throughout the entire broadcast, and a Disney Plus sequel series that, while I enjoy, was regarded so highly by Disney that they dumped the entire second season on there in one day instead of staggering out the releases, which shows you just how much Disney values that property. For the record, the sequel series never mentioned once during the broadcast. I bring all of this up because I was worried that this broadcast was going to be boring. There's only so many references you can make work when you don't even care about the franchise to begin with, and eventually, it'll run stale. And unfortunately, my doubts were proven right, because holy cow, did this broadcast suck. Now I have to make things very clear. I am definitely not the target audience. The whole point of the broadcast is to appeal to kids and people who are casual fans. I'm not a kid, nor am I a casual fan. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're not being fair. If there's a kid's show on and it doesn't appeal to me, but my kid thinks it's good and he's entertained by it, so long as the show isn't a bad influence, it doesn't bother me. I don't have to be the target audience for everything. To expect that is selfish and is a poor understanding of how the world works. But we're going to get to that, because even at its core, I genuinely don't know who this is for. First, let's get the obvious out of the way. This is an objectively terrible way to actually watch a game. The technology is not there and is not improved in the slightest bit since 2023. Just how bad was it? Well, most of the time, you were just guessing as to what was going on. If you want to skip all the technological glitches, I'll put a timestamp in the description so you can just hear the rest of my thoughts on this broadcast, both positive and negative, because there actually were some positive changes from prior editions of the altcasts. But if you want to see just how much of a train wreck this was technologically, here you go. First, let's start with the plays that you genuinely could not see what was going on. These were moments where the camera either wasn't facing the field or was so far away from the action that you felt like a fan watching the fog bowl in terms of trying to guess what was happening.
Lane Johnson is one of the best, if not the best, in football.
First and long for Hurts and the Eagles. He fires all the way to the end zone looking for Herbert alone in the shotgun, playing with a fractured left hand tonight. He's under duress and just has to get rid of it. Handed off to Imani Vidal. Solid gain on first down. NFL. We all do. Archie, can we have the ball back, please? I mean, the play is going on.
Get the receivers close to each other, you get a little bit of a pick, and once again, it's a very easy throw from the quarterback to the tailback for a touchdown.
So if you're the Chiefs, you're rooting hard for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Look at Hampton go, finally chased down.
And now, we get to the plays that just made no sense, with some of these plays, unfortunately, being the biggest plays of the game. Remember that 3-turnover play in the second quarter, and all the chaos from it, where Hurts threw a pick and fumbled on the same play? Try and make out anything that happens here, because I think the broadcast just broke. There were many times, as you'll see at random points throughout this video, where a player ran out of bounds and just disappeared into the void. This video would be 2 hours long if I showed every time a player just ran off into the void. You also had quite a few plays where it was ridiculously zoomed in to the point where you couldn't make anything out, and you were just seeing the skin of the player in question, which is, of course, the ideal way to watch a football game. You had this interception that could overturn because the ball hit the ground. However, I don't see the ball hit the ground at all here. In real life, the refs got the call right. In the Monsters, Inc. world, I'm convinced this game was rigged, because this looks like a clean interception to me. You got the down and distance marker just switching places, with the Monsters just teleporting. You've got this play where Zach Vaughn made an interception one-handed, which admittedly is a nice play by Vaughn. The problem? Vaughn didn't make the pick in real life. In real life, as you're seeing here, this ball was picked off by Adoree Jackson. Even on the replay of the Monsters Inc. broadcast, you see Vaughn make the pick, but again, it was Jackson who actually got it, so the broadcast isn't even true. You had a kick by Jake Elliott, where the ball's just on the ground, and he doesn't need no stinking holder. You had a play where the return man on the Eagles just decided to lateral the ball back to a Chargers player. As you can probably guess, this did not happen in real life, and if it did, Britton Covey would have his house egged. You had the Chargers run the Wildcat with a direct snap to Amari and Hampton. In real life, they never did this, as this was a toss play. Before blowing off Laura Rutledge, Justin Herbert decided that it was a good idea to throw a pass to his fullback a solid 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. As you can probably guess, this did not happen in real life. You had players just stopping on random plays where you have no idea when the play was blown dead. You had Sully just deciding to dry hump the ground on an extra point attempt, which makes it the most exciting extra point attempt in the history of the NFL. You had Devonta Smith making a catch on one of the first drives of the game, and then deciding to swan dive backwards for some reason. Cameron Dicker kicked the ball off, but how did he get the ball to kick off? It just magically levitated over to him. And speaking of levitation, my personal favorite had to be this Jalen Hurts pass, where somehow he got the ball to levitate in midair. I don't know why Eagles fans want to run Hurts out of town for one bad game, because I think they're forgetting the fact that they have a quarterback on their team that can literally bend the laws of physics. Technologically speaking, this game was a disaster for the third straight year. and felt like an incredibly rushed product. Want to know how rushed it was? I understand not wanting to create thousands of different models for monsters in the crowd, but at the very least, can you not bunch 2 or 3 of them right next to each other? Can you at least try to make it look like multiple people? But again, this broadcast, as technologically frustrating and incompetent as it was made for kids. Now I know that kids are a lot smarter than you give them credit for, and the last thing you want to do is talk down to kids, because they absolutely hate that. In no way do I say that the broadcast should have explained things like what a running play is and what a passing play is. However, I'm going to play just some of the clips from this broadcast and some of the terminology that was used from Drew Carter and Dan Orlovsky, the announcers for this game. Ask yourself this: if the target audience is a 7-year-old kid who might not be too familiar with the game, would they understand any of this?
Jalen Hurts in the shotgun in an empty set.
I certainly would be trying to chip Sully to make sure I could get my pass off.
Herbert in the shotgun again. Sully out to the flat. Hampton is still the running back. High formation. He dots the eye back there behind Herbert.
Keep your eyes on them.
Yeah, Hurts in the shotgun. Empty set on 2nd and goal.
He's all the way backside of the run. Look at him. Vision, vision, vision. Run, 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 run. Now drive through the hit, Mike. Yeah. Nice little, really quick run to the flat.
Sully slot left. Mike Wazowski in the slot to your right.
We call this a sail or a chase route. We lift the coverage. That's an intermediate type of completion.
I promise you, no 7-year-old is going to know what the flat is, or what a sail route is, or what the I formation is, or what the slot is, or what a chip is, or what the backside of the run is, or what an empty set is. There's a middle ground in between teaching a 5th grader how to add 2 numbers and teaching a 5th grader advanced calculus. The Nickelodeon broadcast does a great job at this. They don't bring up advanced concepts, but if there is an advanced concept, Nate Burleson knows how to relate that concept into terms that kids can relate to. Here, just throw them into the fire, have fun learning what the flat is and what the back side of the run is, have fun learning about formations when you barely know the rules of the game and maybe saw just 2 games in your life before this. And I'm not saying we can't teach kids the game. I'm not saying that at all. But maybe let's not have a kid read Shakespeare if they're just trying to understand Charlotte's Web. Crazy how a lot of penalties were never explained, but we're just going to give adult concepts to 7-year-olds without explaining the important bare bones things that they might be confused about. Speaking of confusing, let's talk about the cheer canister challenge. This might be one of the stupidest things ever put forth on an NFL broadcast. And trust me, that is saying something. As we learned at the end of the first movie, laughter, not screaming, is the best source of power. When people are happy, Monstropolis gets power. So anytime a big play happens, Monstropolis is happy and cheers, and a cheer canister fills up. If the Eagles get a big play, Mike gets a cheer canister. And if the Chargers get a big play, Sully gets a cheer canister. Whichever team or monster has the most cheer canisters at the end of the night wins. So there's a game within the game. You'd think that ESPN would not attempt something so nonsensical after how much of a disaster it was during the NBA's Marvel game in 2021 with the hero points, which was an insanely confusing system that detracted from the game and couldn't be tracked. Alas, here we are, giving it a second try. And man, was this a disaster, like an insultingly bad disaster. For one, it was never defined at any point as to what constitutes a big play. There were so many inconsistencies that it was hard to keep track of. This field goal by the Chargers in the second quarter, that gave them a cheer canister. This field goal by the Eagles in the first quarter did not give them a cheer canister. Some sacks got cheer canisters, while others did not, and it was a guessing game as to what counted and what didn't. A graphic for the cheer canister only appeared every now and then, so you had no idea who was in the lead during this game within the game. And if you want an idea of how poorly thought out this was, Mike and the Eagles won the canister challenge, even though they lost the game. This meant that Mike got a Gatorade shower and was speaking afterwards about how well his team played and how good this was, even though his team literally lost the game. It was an awkward mess where, if you didn't know any better, you'd think the Eagles won the game, when in actuality, it was the Chargers. Like, just take a listen to this.
Let's hear from Mike after the game.
Oh, thank you, Drew, for the kind and I might say very accurate words. Tonight has been a dream come true.
To use a clip that would have fit last year's Simpsons Altcast, here's what watching the end of this game felt like.
All right, first academic alert. Wiggum, Ralph.
I won!
And that's not all that didn't work about this broadcast. There were these voiceover segments that took way too long, to the point where they were interfering with the play itself. It's as if no one at ESPN knew the timing of football. You've got about 30 seconds in between plays, so these voiceovers should be 20 seconds tops so you can go in and out. Instead, these voiceovers dragged on. You'd have stuff happening during the play where you'd have no idea what was going on, and where Drew Carter and Dan Orlovsky couldn't say anything because Roz was talking or because Mike was talking, and the screen of them talking was taking up a good chunk of the screen. Here's just one example, and I'm going to crop it a little bit to avoid copyright detection, but you'll get the idea, because something like this happened once a drive.
Well, what I don't see is Wazowski and Sullivan bringing me the coffee I asked for over an hour ago. Instead, they're trying to get the attention of those football humans out there and bring themselves some cheers. I love those yellow flags they throw when someone isn't following the rules. Very CDA. I wish I had those to throw at Wazowski whenever he failed to file his paperwork, which is every day.
Now, that's not to say that there weren't some good things about the broadcast. Last year, one of my main complaints with the Simpsons Allcast was that you knew a big play was going to happen, and you knew you were going to be spoiled, because every time a big play happened, one of the players got replaced with a character on the show. If Bart Simpson was lined up at wide receiver, you knew he was getting the ball and getting a first down. If Bart wasn't in the game, you knew that nothing of note was going to happen. This year, to ESPN's credit, they fixed that issue, as Mike and Sully were on the field practically the entire time. Mike could be on the field and not get the ball, Sully could be in at quarterback and throw an incomplete pass, and so on and so forth, so it wasn't predictable. Even though the broadcast was woefully behind, with the telecast being a solid 2 minutes behind real time, at least if you were solely focused on the broadcast, you wouldn't know what was happening just based on who was on the field. The other thing I have to give ESPN credit for here is the scoreboard. Maybe I'm not crazy about the background color of green for both teams, especially with the Chargers being blue and represented by Sully, but at least it's a background. Looking at you, Fox. And the red light over the team that has the ball? A subtle yet genius way to indicate possession. Legitimately, one of the best possession indicators I've ever seen. And it comes in the freaking Monsters Inc. broadcast. So there were definitely some positives here, and some things that ESPN improved upon. But this broadcast still has a long way to go. This was a bizarre, confusing, and downright boring mess of a telecast. Even if you can't excuse the technological gaffes and blunders, of which there were many, it's hard to excuse some of the other things. Mainly, the fact that this was a broadcast without a purpose, and a broadcast with no target audience. Based on the terminology used, it wasn't made for kids. Based on the property used, it wasn't made for mass appeal or to sell something. Based on the quality of the technology, it wasn't made for football lovers. This broadcast served no purpose. The football watchers couldn't make out anything. The young ones couldn't understand anything, and there's only so many times you can say that Mike has good vision for having one eye, that Sully is big and strong and weighs over 700 pounds, and that Roz is watching, always watching, before it gets stale and boring. There's not enough in this IP. There weren't enough references to make a 3.5-hour-long broadcast work. There was barely any meat left on the bone by the end of the first quarter, let alone the end of the game with an added fifth period. And what we got was something that was just boring. It was the exact opposite of Fun Day Football, because the fun was not in the room with us, nor was it behind any door. This felt like a step back from the Simpsons telecast. You know ESPN is going to try this again in 2026. It'll be some other property that's to be determined. But if any ESPN executive is watching this and is scared off by my review, just know this. I scare because I care. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name of the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.